technology.
Right, it's
I'm
recording.
going to stand over there by that table because that's where the drink is.
Yeah. Where are you going to stand? Back? Just. That should be fine.
One of the groups and two of them read it to the end. Felt like quoting back and quoting wait for God, hit the ball back in the way. Do you know?
Yeah, exactly. There's anything you can do if you no longer Shakespeare,
I don't know what the deal is.
The deal is I was just waiting for you to be ready with that, and then I'm going to introduce you. That's all right. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, you're right. It looks like we're ready to go in typical Rory punctual fashion. It's a great pleasure to have Martin Stannard with us reading from his 17th book, I believe.
I'm not counting, I have no idea.
Something like that, 12th to 13th book.
But some of them don't count
one,
as books, Rory, come on.
Don't they? Okay, alright, well...
there's little folded things.
Folded things. Folded thing, 17th folded thing. The second of which is published by Leaf Press, edited by Alan Baker, who's right here as well. He's also a very fine poet. He's going to read from his new collection of poems from The Young at Heart, which is published by Leaf Press. And then there'll be time for questions afterwards. And that's it.
That's it. That's it. Okay, good. Thank you. I should maybe tell you, I don't want to sound apologetic, but I live and work in China, and this is the first public reading I've given for something like 7 or 8 years. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing. The first poem I'm going to read is called For Mark Halliday. Mark Halliday is an American poet, a very good friend of mine. We collaborate on things quite a lot, and I think he's a great poet, and he obviously likes my work, but he has kind of a feeling about my work. He thinks it's sometimes a bit rambling and a bit meaningless and a bit unfocused or something. And one day he asked me to write a poem that was comprehensible and meaningful and moving. And this is for Mark Halliday. Mark has asked me to write a poem that is both comprehensible and moving. And because my middle name is obliging, I am happy to oblige. Although the last time I wrote a comprehensible poem, my fan club threatened to buy a suitcase and fill it full of underwear and leave me. It took more than an hour to console her with moves learned from films. It would be good and surprising to write something both comprehensible and moving and even rhyming, but I'm not sure it's possible these days to be surprising, or if I'm up to the challenge anyway. The timing is all wrong. I just checked the mirror, and it's going to be another bad hair day as far as I can see, which is only into the future and what it's going to be. For a poem to be both comprehensible and moving, it has to be about something, and not merely a potpourri of words assembled purely for the fun and pleasantly enjoyable pleasure of it. And that something has to be of interest to the reader, not only the writer, if that is at all possible, which it may not be in my case, because I'm a selfish kind of poet, and the only enjoyment I really care for is my own. And anyway, what is there but life? And the only life I know anything about is mine. Although it's true I don't find it either comprehensible or moving, merely frustrating and worrying. And I cannot imagine it being of interest to anyone else, either living or dead, or, which is more likely, a figment of my imagination. Once upon a time, I wrote a poem someone described as a futile attempt to explain the unexplainable. But they had misunderstood my intention, which was to write a poem that was a futile attempt to explain the unexplainable and was, in its own wonderful way, a success at the same time as it sang of its own failure. And this I still find an achievement of which I'm proud. But it was not moving, and neither is this. Rather, it's a statement of desire and pessimism laced with a strong dose of defiance. Defiance of what, I am not sure, but without defiance, there can be no hope of fulfillment. And without fulfillment, there is only dismay and a crushing disappointment. I was saying to Rory earlier that I only actually got my hands on this book at the weekend when I came in from China, so I don't know my way around it. I know what's in it, but I don't kind of have a feel for it yet. So I'm going to have to look for poems sometimes, like where is it? Where is it? This poem is called Slosh, and I just love that word. I heard that word on a Count Arthur Strong radio show, and I heard it and I thought, that's a really cool word. I love that word. And I wrote it down and it became the title of this poem. Well, first we had some splosh, then we had some more. Before long, the stars in the heavens were on fire. The horizon was lined with dancing girls the shape of trees or the other way around. For a moment, I thought I'd lost my glasses, but then realized I was wearing them. When the splosh was gone, we fell asleep, one by one, in a neat heap, somewhat resembling firewood. Well, come dawn, the snow showed signs of wear and tear. The orphans were standing around kicking their heels, waiting for the bus to take them to the seaside. It was the day of the outing. Sand dunes shift and shimmy as wind blows. I thought it too cold to go to the seaside, but one look at those awful children and I knew I was probably wrong. Well, the day was one moment sun and the next snow-laden cloud. After lunch I put on my shoes to go walking and the rain duly fell. I was not in the best of moods. The news from the world I'd seen at breakfast had been terribly downing and there was not enough milk for my cornflakes. I went out, but not for very long. Well, in the evening we craved splosh, but there was none and no one had any money, so we looked at the television for a couple of hours. Nobody could be bothered to turn it on, so burdensome was the ennui of our minds, what with being awake and all. Before I climbed Wooden Hill, I looked out the window to check on the mountains. They were looming, but somewhat reassuring. Well, months followed months, as moths follow moths, and eventually we arrived at the autumn of life, and the music we loved caused leaves to fall off trees, for it comprised the melodies of our fallen. We posted signs around the homestead saying, "Keep up. If you don't follow this, you'll get lost." In honour of our travels, I translated them. 鸟子转的快一点，如果你不紧跟我的思虑，最后你会不知道我在说什么。Well, what does it add up to? I go to the supermarket and get some cheap splosh and feel a lot better. But the feeling doesn't last. I've noticed how feelings, when you look back at them, have a terrifying habit of not lasting. And you look in the glass and there it languishes your life, and it's kind of really mystifying. Okay, Joe the Meek, which I have to admit I thought this was a really clever title, because sometimes I think I'm really clever. I've been listening to a lot of Joe Meek music. Are you familiar with Joe Meek? Anyway, okay. This is called Joe Meek. I've put the shelf back up and repaired the wall. I leave you to put the ornaments back in place and rehang the pictures, those that are still in one piece. I'll be here on Saturday morning as usual. Please have the kids ready. I sign myself the DIY man. I have no idea where you are. Perhaps you are on faraway island or on top of cloud-hidden mountain. I hope you are not down deep dark hole. It's not nice down there. But when you return, you will return, right? Could you at least message me so I know I'm not talking to myself? I'll be here on Saturday morning as usual. Please have the kids ready. I sign myself Global Repositioning System. By the way, did you come across my Alexis Zumbas CD while you were having your clear out? I know you weren't a fan, but I kind of miss him. His playing really annoyed the neighbours, and that was all the inspiration someone like me needs. I'll be here on Saturday morning as usual. Please have the kids ready. I sign myself the Fiddler. Dearest, did you ever like my mind? I had been thinking of leaving it to you when I check out in exchange for occasional touches of your most intimate clothing, but this may now be the all-time mootest of moot points. I am becoming a connoisseur of the pointless. I'll be here on Saturday morning as usual. Please have the kids ready. I sign myself, Joe the Meek. On the turntable as I write this, Malcolm and the countdowns are spinning out of control. Malcolm's heart having been stolen away by a post-war party girl. Notice how he doesn't say his heart's been ripped from his chest. I'll be here on Saturday morning as usual, so please have the kids ready. Oh, I'll read this one. I'm one of those poets who, well, I shouldn't be saying this. I find it very difficult to write about family and things like that. People I know, parents, stuff like that. I don't really do it. But this is the closest I've ever got to it maybe, and it's called Things My Father Never Said. And it's in 5 or 6 sections. Things my father never said. 1. The dove of love purchased in the most unlikely places. 2. When tears roll down your cheek, it's a sign you're not mine. When tears roll down my cheek, you know I'm not myself. 3. As snowflakes fall at your feet and condensation freezes on the window pane, as the bud blooms into the flower and the rainbow enraptures a child, as the shopkeeper slams the door in your face and the police warn you to keep your distance, as the gods bless you and the sun shines on your head, as men look upon you with disdain and women can't be bothered even to go that far, so love has its ups and downs, my son. 4. There's nothing I don't know about the pigeon of despair. 5. Your hair looks good today. 6. Let's slam on some music and remind ourselves why, in the maelstrom of our days, we remember there can be many loves and it's overwhelming and I don't believe in God anymore, only the grace of life, so let's go out and get drunk. There's a poem called The Drowner, which I just have to find. Just bear with me a moment. The Drowner. And I don't know how to introduce. I've never been very good at introducing my poems. Really very poor at introducing my poems. This is in 4 sections, and this is the first section called Drafts. As one pushed off the end of a pier who pauses to reflect how it's so tiring to wash your hair, and wishes there were a handmaiden nearby to whom he could say, "Come wash my hair for me. Here, use the water from this convenient ocean." And the handmaiden, with her hands and her civility, would do his bidding, for she is unreal and kind. As one thrown overboard from a skiff who remembers how, in moments of the greatest distress, trivialities will sometimes push themselves to the fore, and he wonders if there is a beauty parlour nearby. I have heard such good things about nails and nails. For his concerns and regrets are not for wife and child, house and garden, car and motorhome, joint account and mortgage burden, scripture and faith, philosopher's stone and crystal talisman, but for broken fingernail, unsightly nose hair. As one left for dead in the wake of his hijacked yacht, who sees the mermaid swimming at his side, and she, in reply to his, "You are beautiful and impossible, take me in your arms and save my life," says, "I bet you wish you'd taken those swimming lessons you always thought about but never got around to," then dives below the surface, never to be seen again, until he wakes up in the shade of desert island palms and looks blearily into the eyes of the dusky maiden who mops his brow as her tears become pearls. 2. Fragment. Until the day I was keel-hauled at the Admiral's command, I did not know what to be keel-hauled meant, being new to the ocean and more of a philosopher who had spent many hours pondering the relative qualities of the concrete and the abstract, of water and land, of air and the opposite of air, which I had been attempting to name, then a sailor married to the sea, having been born of water and thus destined to dissolve at the end of his time. How I came to be at sea is an anecdote worth the telling. It all began one day on the pier at Brighton, and I was disputing with a fellow thinker. He calls himself a thinker, but I dispute. 3. all that was found of the last will and testament, and to romance my heart, and to desire my loins, and to hope my eyes, and to faith my intellect, and to trust my bones, and to endeavour my breath, and to courage my blood, and to perseverance my afterlife. 4. The last will and testament in context. He was in the last drawer they opened. Everyone was surprised at how much he had shrunk. They knew he had withdrawn into himself in his later years, but finding him to be no larger than a moderately sized vibrator was a shock to them all, especially since, with his shaved head, he looked like one too. Clasped in his left hand was a scrap of paper on which could be discerned a minuscule script which, with the aid of a magnifying glass, proved to be the words presented here as all that was found of the last will and testament. What had become of the rest of the will is impossible to say, although the consensus seems to be he was eating the paper at the time of his death. The frayed edges suggest small nibbles had been taken from it. One person, we shall keep his identity concealed for now, has suggested the document was not a will, but a poem. But as more than one person has said, just because what remains looks like a bit of a poem doesn't mean it was a bit of a poem. Okay, this is called One More Sip. There seems to be a lot of alcohol in this one. I don't really know where that came from. I don't drink at all. I don't tell the truth either. Okay, one more sip. Oh, one more sip and I'll be done. Dear Samantha, if that's your name, are you as much of a bookworm as I? The inquisitors have expressed surprise at the similarity of our answers, but how could they understand two minds working as if, not so much in parallel, but, to be more exact, in tandem? Which reminds me, I did not learn to ride a bicycle until I was 28 years old. Please don't tell anyone all the things you know about me. One more sip and I'll be done. Dear Samantha, if I'm not talking to myself, are you the fingers wrapped around the body of the snake or the stone at the heart of the stone? I'm worried because your hair is falling out, or is it mine? Yesterday I tumbled from the quayside into the harbour and was only saved by the helping hand of the idiot boy, and in the nick of time. I cannot swim, nor can I tell the difference between sarcasm and out-and-out cruelty. Please, please, don't tell anyone all the things you know about me. Oh, one more sip and I'll be done. Dear Samantha, if you even exist, are you wondering how come I have been chosen to be the chosen one? Well, when asked, 85% of customers surveyed said they would recommend me to a friend. Because of this, and because I have the coy personality of a coy lamb, I have been earmarked in spite of my spending way too much time in a world of my own. Anyway, please don't tell anyone all the things you know about me. Okay, this is called An Albatross is Perched on My Shoulder. Albatross, Coleridge, genius. This is not genius, but it has an albatross in it. And you should write at least one poem with an albatross in your life. Ever since the ancient mariner shot the albatross, I've been sad, but only on days with either an A or an M in them. There do not seem to have been many happy days since 1798. Also, of late, I've been suffering from what I hear is auditory fatigue, which loosely translated means I so am fed up listening to anything, but primarily to people talking, and primarily people talking too loud. Oh, see, your incessant song is, or would be if you were in earshot, the only sound tolerable these days, for you know everything about how my heart beats whenever the future I consider. But hush. Censorship, which I totally deplore by the way, will not let me tell you who am I, but nothing else about me is secret. My book an open heart, my heart an open sore, and an open sore is not very nice because it attracts the worst kind of plague and pestilence. This reminds me of London, 1665, and I remember I was looking forward to the 1790s and the arrival of Romanticism, and one day I was in harbour awaiting a vessel, a ship upon which to sail into oblivion's sunset, and a chap asked because I had an albatross perched on my shoulder. Why? And I gave him the only reply possible. An albatross is perched on my shoulder because he likes it. This book has some short plays in it, dramatic works, which is a bit of a misnomer. It's a bunch of little scenes between two men, one of whom is called Bud and one of whom is called Jed. And there are little dialogues. The whole thing is called Flirt in Skirts, and I'm just going to read 2 or 3 of them. Because I love men so much. This is scene 1, and the scene is the kitchen just behind a chap's left ear. Bud, what are these? Jed, they are photographs of girls' knees. Bud, where did they come from? Jed, I took them with my new Canon EOS 100D with an EF 70 to 200mm f/2.81 USM telephoto lens. Bud, don't you know that girls' knees are evil? Jed, they make me feel like mealtime. Bud, girls' knees are the invention of Satan. He went to the bottom of the abyss and scooped up a handful of the blackest evil and compressed it into bone and cartilage to make girls' knees. Jed, but I am in love with girls' knees. Bud, you are a clown man. Scene 4, the inside of a chap's skull just outside the brain. Jed, I am in love with Betty. Bud, she is a flirt. Forget her. She does not believe in God. Jed, but she has legs and is always smiling toward my house. Bud, all girls have legs except some of the severely disabled. Jed, but she wears such short skirts. I am in love with them. Bud, short skirts are the invention of Satan. He invented them during his clothing period. Jed, but Betty is my destiny. Bud, you are a man, idiot. I'll read one more. Scene 14, the alleyway behind a chap's eyes. Bud, you look awfully smart today. Is that a clean t-shirt? Jed, I am meeting Betty's friend, Coco. I want to make a good impression. Bud, I take it Coco is a girl? Jed, Betty says she is already mine. All I have to do is show up and she will direct me to her secret love buttons. Bud, love buttons are the invention of Satan. He invented them as part of his scheme for making things easy for people without imagination. Jed, they are genius. Bud, you are a hollowed man. Oh, actually, I might read one more. Kind of in the mood for this one. This is scene 68 and a half. Hello. The bathroom under a chap's bed. Jed, my trousers have acquired a dreadful disease. Bud, of a sexually transported nature. Jed, of course, I wouldn't have it any other way. Bud, well, that's very Elizabethan or romantic or even Victorian. Perhaps it's also postmodern, come to think of it. Jed, I transcend historical and aesthetic periods. Bud, sexually transported diseases, it goes without saying, are the invention of Satan. He invented them to put a dash of fear and restraint into the otherwise fun pastime of coitus. Jed, at least it's only my trousers. Bud, for now, it will spread unless you take the appropriate action. I suppose Betty is to blame. Jed, it could be Betty, or Lorraine, or Coco, or Beatrice, or Suki, or Chantel, or the Anderson twins. Bud, you are a man rabbit. Okay, I'm going to read one more thing, and this is a test for poets. The idea for this came from something I read, which was called A Test for Art, which was something which the American poet Kenneth Cope did with an artist. I think it was Jim Dine. He did this thing with Jim Dine. And so I've kind of ripped off the idea, don't mind admitting it, but this is a test for poets, and given there are one or two poets in the room, if you want to take this test at a later date, it's available. It's 50 questions, and to pass it, well, I don't know what you have to do to pass it. Anyway, 1. What is your first thought when you wake up in the morning? 2. Would you rather be a pop star than a poet? 3. What is the best time of day to write a poem? 4. What role does the ego have to play in the art of poetry? 5. Does poetry matter? 6. Is there such a thing as a poetry establishment? 7. Can the craft of poetry be learned? 8. Does poetry need a subject? 9. Do you remember the first poem you ever wrote? 10. Is it better for the poet to be A, unrecognised, B, underrated, C, unknown, D, undressed? 11. Is it reasonable that many of our best poets are actually no good? That's actually my favourite question. 12. Is the internet a kind of poetry? 13. Which of the following best approximates to the distance between the poems you wanted to write and the poems you have written? A, a couple of inches, B, a mile, C, from here to eternity, D, more than words can say. 14. Is your poetry too personal? 15. Is poetry sociable? 16. Have you ever dreamed a marvellous poem only to find it was gone upon waking? 17. In which of the following periods was it a joy to be a poet? A, the Elizabethan age, B, the 1950s, C, the Thatcher years, D, last weekend. 18. Is it possible to be original? 19. When you write a poem, do you discover a larger, better version of yourself? 20. Is self-doubt important for the poet? 21. Are you sure? 20. Sorry. Should apologise for a joke. 22. Is there any subject unfit for poetry? 23. Look at the following drawing. Now, there is no drawing here, okay, but anyway. Look at the following drawing. Do you see A, a horse, B, the Taj Mahal, C, Manet's Olympia, D, the Poet Laureate? Choose one. 24. In which city is it best to be a poet? 25. Are your poems in colour or black and white? 26. How do you usually feel when you hear other poets read their work? A, uninterested, B, depressed, C, suicidal, D, elsewhere. 27. Did you ever count syllables whilst writing a poem, and if so, do you now realise it was a mistake? 28. Is it possible to be both a poet and a nice person? 29. How many times have you given up on poetry? 30. How many times has poetry given up on you? 31. Which weather is best suited to the writing of poetry? A, summer calm, B, autumn mists, C, typhoon, D, sunshine and showers. 32. For whom do you write? 33. Is poetry the same as real life? 34. Is poetry these days a young man's game or a young woman's? 35. Do you have any idea what the poets in Ghana are doing these days? 36. Do you think anyone really understands what you write? 37. Is the maintaining of a healthy diet and a clean and ethically sound lifestyle important if the upcoming 21st century poet is to be taken up by the poetry establishment? 38. Should a poet dress A, fashionably, B, eccentrically, C, what might best be described as neutrally? 39. How may a poet tell when they have peaked? 40. At what age should one retire from poetry and bow out gracefully? 41. What is the difference between a poet and an undertaker? 42. Is the culling of poets the way forward? 43. Has the idea of influence had any influence on your writing, and do you think you have influenced other writers? 44. Apropos question 43, has the evil of plagiarism ever disturbed your tranquility? 45. How many friends do you have? 46. Has poetry had its day, and if so, what day was it? 47. Do you think your poems will continue to live when you don't? 48. What is your last thought before you fall asleep at night? 49. Do you sleep well? 50. What's for dinner? Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you. I will say, as I said, I haven't read in public for 7 or 8 years, and that felt really weird. It's like, what am I doing here? But anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Martin. We've got plenty of time for questions. So, that man, whoever he is.
Can you say something about the poetry establishment, seeing as you're based in China, so you're kind of slightly removed, luckily for you, from it, you know, so...
Well, I've been involved in poetry for 40 years now, which is kind of a really weird thing to say, but I started publishing with my friend Rupert here back in the late 1970s, and I don't know how to answer that question. I've always thought that there's something somewhere, there are people somewhere who say what is acceptable and what is, what the kind of poem is that we like, and what the good kind of poem is, and the kind of poems that should go on the A-level syllabus or whatever, That's all bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Whoever controls those things, I have no idea who they are. And after 40 years, I don't give up. But there is something somewhere. It's not a conspiracy. It's none of that. But somewhere there's some people whose ideas seem to suggest what is right and what is wrong, what's acceptable and what isn't. But it's kind of weird. But without naming names, there are a few people who, at one point in my poetry life, were kind of outsiders, and now they're insiders. And some of them are really good people, and some of them I don't care about. But somehow, within our society, someone deems what is good taste and what isn't, or whatever, and I haven't got time to think about it, But there is some kind of establishment, like there's some kind of, I don't know, if there's a music establishment as such, but there's something, and there's a certain kind of poetry which is never allowed quite in that door, whatever that door is, I think, even though they sometimes pay lip service to it. That's the kind of conversation you have over lots of beer in a pub.
Without a camera sticking.
Yeah. That's why I didn't name any names. But there is something, but I don't kind of know who it is. But there is something that once you kind of get accepted by certain people, then your life's going to be a little bit better in terms of, getting work and stuff like that.
Greg Woods recently said to me, colleague, that the poetry world sort of openly corrupts and pretends it isn't, which is sort of true, I think.
Yeah, it is. And like I say, I've been in this too long to even care about it. I don't even care who those people are, but somewhere there are people who are kind of accepted in, and who makes those decisions? I don't know. You end up, being an editor of a big publishing house, or you find yourself getting on well with that editor, and it's all of that.
Yeah, you don't get on well with Alan.
Sorry.
So this question might be related to what you've just said, or it might not be. There was a bit where you said, just because a poem looks like a bit of a poem doesn't mean it is a bit of a poem.